Well, good morning. The first thing I want to tell you is thank you. Thank you for the sweet, kind, caring notes that you sent to Robin and myself regarding the storm, Hurricane Debbie, and you were wishing us that we would be safe, and you were concerned for us, and that was very sweet. Turns out we did pretty well. There wasn't much damage here. There was a lot of small things that fell out of the trees around here, but nothing big. When Robin and I took a drive to see the damage in our area, we found a couple of downed trees. There was one downed tree that knocked some power lines down. And then in the news, there were a few things that were worse than what we were able to find. But all in all, everything worked out pretty good. And that's usually the way it is. I think I went through one storm one time, one hurricane, and then one major storm that had no name. But it was very sweet to see the notes that you guys sent me. So one of the things, yesterday when we were driving around, we were looking at the places where we know that the gopher tortoises live. And we were wondering, well, where do they go? Like when it floods, where do they go? Because they have these burrows, they burrow themselves underground. Anyway, so I've been thinking about them, and I've been reading about them because I honestly don't know much about them. But I thought it'd be fun to paint one. And so that's a gopher tortoise. It gets to be about maybe that big. I don't know if you could tell from my hands, but I think they say 10 pounds is what they get to be. But I did this with watercolor, and I used some pen and ink, which I kind of regret. I think I didn't need the pen and ink, but I did use it. See, I always try to ask myself, what would I do next time? Well, next time I think I would skip the pen and ink. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe around the eyes, maybe that's where the pen, because that's where I used it also, and the nostrils. But the scales right here, I used it there. I probably didn't need to use it there. Okay, that's the art part. But there's a whole world of educational material regarding these tortoises, these gopher tortoises, and yes, they're not called turtles. They're called gopher tortoises, and there are a lot of them here in this area, and I'm afraid that the numbers are dwindling because of all the growth of our human population. So maybe I can paint some pictures that'll help raise awareness. I think that's possible. Is that like the old songwriter in me that wanted to change the world with a perfect song? Am I falling back to that delusion that I can actually change the world with painting? Well, maybe not. But anyway, it was fun painting that picture. And maybe I'll paint more wildlife. Maybe I'm on a new beginning after the storm. All right, let me show you how I painted this picture on a greeting card. It's definitely going to go to somebody. I don't know who, but there's got to be somebody in the list of people who I know that would love a painting of a gopher tortoise. All right, I'll show you how I did that right now. All right, this is going to be a fun one, I hope. And it just never occurred to me how many stories I have about gopher tortoises. And so let's just sketch it first, because there's no way I'm just going to be able to wing this one. So let's put a big head right here, because they have, pretty large head, and they're so magnificent. I was just reading up on them so that I could tell you something, because I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know a whole lot about them. So I'm kind of learning at the same time as I'm painting. It's kind of a cool way to learn about something, is to just decide to paint a picture of it. And in this case, they're right in my backyard. They are not literally in my backyard, but pretty close. And I will say this, I have lived in a few places here in Florida where they were literally in my backyard. So let's just, they look so prehistoric, don't they? And let's get this mouth here. It's got a mouth, it's got a big old, I would say a big jaw. I don't want to make him look cartoony, you know. So this is his nostrils are really up here somewhere. His nostril, there's his eye. His nostrils are up here. I'm looking at a reference photo. So of course I could not do this without a reference photo. And I got the reference photo from Unsplash. So if you want to find it, I will show it to you, but you mean you can find it for yourself also. Okay. Just trying to get this guy on here. Just get his face. His face is important. I think his scales are going to be important also. So I have lived in Florida since 1972. When I first moved here, I was 17 years old. And I moved here with my family because my father had retired and he wanted to live in Florida because my grandparents lived here, my mother's parents. So they wanted to be closer to them. And my grandfather, by the way, is who I called Poppa. Yeah. So that's why I'm called Poppa. I'm looking for my eraser. There it is. A trusty eraser. By the way, I've never talked about the kneaded eraser, but if you have a kneaded eraser, you can just roll it across, kind of like clay, and it will lighten pencil marks. It's a really good tool. I really should get one because it's a way it's been so many years. Like I've told you a few times, I'm really relatively new to the whole watercolor world, but I remember using kneaded what do you call them, erasers to lighten the lines on a watercolor painting so that you don't have too much of the pencil showing. Okay. So, all right, so back to my story. So I was 17 years old. I don't want to tell this story too much because it's kind of a boring story. But I was 17 years old. My parents decided to live in Florida. And we moved from a suburb of New York City. So it was not urban in the truest sense, but it was very rich suburban. It was so, I don't know what you picture normally, but if you picture 10 miles outside of Brooklyn, that's where it was. And but it was really nice. I have really good fond memories of my childhood and my youth. But anyway, so we moved to a very rural area with a lot of woods and a lot of pine trees. And so as a 17-year-old, I didn't drive yet. The kids that lived here drove because the driving age in Florida was a lot lower. Well, it was like 2 years lower, I think, or maybe even 3 years lower. New York, you had to wait till you were 18, I think. I don't really remember. All I know is all the kids my age drove, and I didn't drive yet. So I walked a lot. I walked everywhere. And I'm doing the scales now on the leg, the foot of the tortoise. So as I walked, I would see these, what are called gopher tortoises. That's what I'm painting right now. Okay? And the gopher tortoises, of course, I didn't know what that was looking like. I called them turtles. Then I was taught later on, well, somebody told me they were called gophers. And I said, well, I think they're not gophers, because gophers are furry. But what did I know? But they are indeed gopher tortoises. That's what they call them. All right, so this is kind of a fun assignment here. And I used to see them all the time. And I had a dog who liked to sniff out the burrows where they lived, because they lived underground. They lived in these shallow little burrows, little caves that they dug for themselves. So and I would see them all the time, and I would pick them up and move them if they were in the street. And then there were all the stories of how the old country folk, whoever that is, the country folk used to eat them. No, it's not something I ever did. No, but anyway, there's our sketch. So anyway, I used to see them and learned they were called gopher tortoises. And now where I live, they are not literally in my backyard, but they are not far from here. I see them all the time. Let's see, I don't want purple. What do I want? I want a brown. Let me see what this is. What is that? Is that a brown? It's like a gray kind of an animal, but I guess that's a brown. Okay, I'm going to use that one to kind of get started. And so as the more I learned about the area I live in, the more I became familiar with them. And they were kind of a cool animal to see. And what occurred to me is that you don't ever hear people really talking about them. Like when people talk about Florida, they always talk about the alligators. They always talk about the dolphins. They always talk about the flamingos, which you really don't see too many of them. What else do they talk about? They talk about the iguanas down in Miami. But they don't usually talk about these guys, these tortoises. And they're pretty amazing. They have so many facts about them that will just amaze you. So I wanted to share some of them with you. So I don't have a poem today, but I do have like a little fact sheet I found. Now from an artistic point of view, I thought this was going to be a fun painting because of the shadows. Lots of deep shadows in this tortoise because he lives. It's kind of weird. His body is also his home in a way. Isn't that weird? Well, I guess that's true for all of us, right? Doesn't God or Jesus, don't they talk about your body as being your temple? So I guess it's true for all of us. I hope that's in focus. I have to keep doing that in case I messed up on that last time. So I want to read to you some facts about this guy. But before I tell you facts that I read, I'm going to tell you facts that I know. Okay? So facts that I know. Well, I know it's a tortoise. I know that they don't get to be as large as, let's say, the Galapagos tortoises. Not even close. But they do get to be about, I'm going to guess 10 pounds. I don't know. That's something I'll have to look up. But I have seen them on the side. I've seen them crossing the road, and Robin has seen them cross. I've been with Robin, and we will stop the car, and she will get out, and she will pick it up and move it off the road so that it doesn't get hit. And I think there are some rules for builders. You cannot build on a tortoise burrow unless you relocate it, you find a new home for it. I think I've heard that. So what I'm trying to do here is put some dappled light on this guy. Put some dappled, just some shadows though. Okay. Oh, so the hurricane that was here yesterday, and it was here yesterday. Yesterday was the day for the hurricane. I didn't paint yesterday because of the electricity going out. It went out a couple times. It didn't stay out for very long, but I kept getting worried that it was going to cause a problem for my computer if it was fluctuating. So I didn't paint. But we did go for a ride, and it was during that ride that I wondered about these guys, because I said to Robin, "Where do they go? Like, where do the tortoises go when it's raining like this?" So we just assumed they stayed in their burrows and hoped for the best. And I think that is what they do. Okay, just trying to get this guy. All the shadows. There's some darker shadows and some lighter shadows. So another story I have to share with you about these guys is when I worked at the assisted living facility, I used to take the old people. I say that because now I'm the same age they were back then. Well, at least the men. The women got to be really old. Us men, we don't stick around that long, I guess. I hope I do. But anyway, I used to take them for rides, and we would see the gopher tortoises on the side of the road. And a lot of those ladies, it was mostly ladies, a lot of those ladies moved here from someplace up north, and they really had never seen gopher tortoises. I believe they're only here in the southeast of the U.S., well, maybe elsewhere in the world, but as far as this country. And I would stop the van, because I'd have them in the van, the ladies, and I would show them the tortoises. I'd pick them up and bring them to them. Now, I don't know if I was breaking the law by picking them up, but I would always bring them back to, where I found them, which was just off the side of the road. I mean, they weren't far away. It wasn't like I went deep into the woods because I would drive down these old undeveloped roads, these dirt roads, and show them just like I take them on a mystery ride. So I called it a mystery ride. All right, trying to get some more little dark shadows here. I think I'm going to use my pen to get some of these lines here, because they look definitely dark enough and they're skinny enough. So yeah, yesterday after the storm was over, Robin and I went for a ride, and we wanted to see if anything was flooded and what the area looked like after the storm. And the good news is we didn't see much damage. The bad news is two pieces of bad news. There was plenty of damage. Not that we witnessed, but I saw it in the news. And the coastal areas, which we don't live in the coastal area, so we fared better than a lot of the people who live in the coastal areas. But we did see a downed power line, a tree that fell on a power line. I read in the news that there was a car that got hit by a fallen tree. The storm caused the tree to fall right onto a car. So, yeah, there was some damage. And if you went to the coast, which sometimes after a storm, Robin and I get calls to come out to the coast to do videos so we can get the word out about the need, because the highly populated areas have good news coverage. They have the TV stations, they cover them really well. But the low populated areas don't usually get coverage. And so they call us, which is very honored. They call us to record the damage and to show it on YouTube. And so we do that. Sometimes we haven't got that call this time. Maybe they did okay this time. But tortoise coming to life. Our tortoise. Our teacher taught us. The tortoise. The tortoise taught us how to live in a storm. Oh, I could make a poem. The tortoise taught us how to survive. How to live more than just 9 to 5. How to burrow yourself and to share where you live. Yes, the tortoise taught us a great way to live. Oh my gosh, I just made up a poem. Because they do share their burrows, you know, with other animals. Put a little darkness right there. Look, that spread out right there. And a little bit of darkness around his eyes. And here on his nose. What do you think so far? This is the dark, very dark area. Let that all dry right there. A little bit of darkness here on his neck. His neck disappears into his shell. Isn't God's design amazing? All of the creatures that God has designed, they all have a function, a different reason. Like the scales on this tortoise. What is the reason for these scales? Like, why do some animals have scales and some animals have fins? And some animals have fur, and some animals have feathers. I should take the camera out and show you some of these tortoises. I know where I find them. Right where I live now, they're not too far from the landfill where we bring our garbage. There we go. So some of these lines up here can be a little defined. Just doing it all with one brush. I don't know if you watched any of the videos I did with the acrylic paint, but with the acrylic paint I was using so many brushes. With watercolor I seem to be able to fare pretty well with just one brush or two brushes. If you go to the like an animal sanctuary or something, you'll see super large tortoises. It's not the same breed as this one. This one is I don't know what you call it. Well, it's called a Gopher Tortoise. I don't know why I said I don't know what it's called. I do know what it's called. All right, let's try and put some very subdued green here. They eat grass. They eat grass. Oh yes. I think grass is their only food. I don't know that for a fact, but they do eat grass. Let me just try to make some of these areas here. This is be the grass he's in. All right, I gotta keep working these browns. I think I want his whole shell to be it's like dappled light, you know. Get this dappled light all over him. So It's got to be lighter than under here. Under here has to be darker. But I still want it to be dappled. That green up there didn't belong there. That was a mistake. Alright, it's so wet now I have to let it dry because it's not working. And I'm going to use my pen to put in some of the details on this turtle. This tortoise, I mean. There are some conservation efforts also to protect the environment of these tortoises. I'm not an expert on that, but I do have a website that I pulled up that has some information, so I'll read that to you too. Okay, and so instead of a poem today, we have information on the gopher tortoise. All right, let me I'm going to get something first. I want to get one of these dark paints from this other set because my dark is gone. And here's some, I think this is a brown. I think that's a brown. And I think that's a gray. I think that's all I need. So let me read you some of these things while this dries. One of the oldest living species on the planet is the gopher tortoise. How about that? It is now threatened. We're protecting their habitat and giving them a head start. Where am I getting this from? I'm getting this from a website called the Nature Conservancy. If you want to visit their site, it's nature.org. Nature.org. Okay, so let me continue reading to you. Oops. I'm on my computer. I've got to read here. The scientific name for the gopher tortoise is the Gopherus polyphemus, or polyphemus. 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 Gopherus polyphemus. It's threatened to endangered. It grows to be between 9 to 11 inches as adults and about 10 pounds. Oh, I guessed right. The lifespan is between 40 to 60 years in the wild and 90 years in captivity. The shell color is tan, brown, or gray. The gopher tortoise is about as charming as a tortoise can get, it says. Originating 60 million years ago, it's one of the oldest living species on the planet and the only native North American tortoise species east of the Mississippi River. The gopher tortoise ranges from southern South Carolina through the southern half of Georgia into Florida and west into southern Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. However, it is nearly extinct in South Carolina and Louisiana and rare in Mississippi and Alabama. The gopher tortoise is relatively small. I just told you that. Let's see, nesting season is from late April to mid-July, and they lay between 5 to 9 eggs at a time. The hatchlings emerge from the nest from late August through early November, and they face immediate threats. Only 25% of all eggs hatch in the wild, and only 10% of the hatchlings survive their first year. Wow. Sexual maturity doesn't happen for at least a decade. Wow. Making gopher tortoises very slow to reproduce and very vulnerable. Gopher tortoises burrow, as I mentioned. Gopher tortoises are a keystone species, which means they have an outsized impact on their environment. A keystone species. I never knew that word. This impact is largely due to their burrows. Gopher tortoises have large elephantine hind limbs and flattened shovel-like forelimbs that are uniquely designed to dig burrows up to 40 feet long and 10 feet wide. Wow. At least 300 other species also use their burrows. including rare species such as the eastern indigo snake, the gopher frog, the Florida mouse, and hundreds of rodents and invertebrates. Wow, 300 other animals use the burrows. A young gopher tortoise in a captive enclosure with sand and grass at a nursery in Camp Shelby. Oh, that must be text from a photo that I didn't copy. Wow. Here's a fun fact. Gopher tortoises and many other species use their burrows to shelter from fire. Wow. The main threat to gopher tortoises is the same one faced by hundreds of other species, which is loss of habitat. One of their favorite habitats is the longleaf pine forest, which once covered 90 million acres unbroken from Virginia to Florida to Texas. Less than 5% of the original longleaf of pine forest remains today. Wow. Well, this goes on and on. This is a long article. But it looks like they're working to protect them. I'll have to look into that more. All right. Back to the painting. Well, that was interesting. Did you find it interesting? Okay, I found my pen. I really can't do anything until it's dry. The eye looks dry. So I'll take my little pen and try to add some of these details. I probably don't really need to add details there, but I think I will. So the tortoise's eye almost looks like a human eye. It almost looks like it has eyeliner. And it almost looks like it has an eyeball. Just like we do. Isn't it amazing, really? It's truly amazing. And here are the little nostrils. And here's the little mouth. The mouth comes up like this. And goes across. And down here they got some, I think I'll put some of these lines in here for these scales. Just a few. No, maybe more than a few. I can see a need to put them in here. And then I'll use the black paint to really darken some of these shadows. And some of these lines too maybe could be more defined. And the tortoise's shell. It's easy to mistake them and call them turtles. And it's understandable when a local person calls them a tortoise and somebody who's not from the area is confused. I mean, a gopher, a tortoise. You know, when people call them a gopher, it's like, what? That's not a gopher. But it is a gopher tortoise. Now we know gopherus is where the word gopher comes from. And I guess gopherus must mean that they burrow themselves, right? What do you think? That's what I think. All right. I don't really need to put too many of these lines. I think just in the darker areas. Maybe a few up here. Because you might not be able to see all of them. And also, there's more light that needs to be worked up there around his head. So after the storm, we were driving around and I was wondering about where these guys go. in a storm. And my guess is now that we know how large the burrows are, I guess they're pretty safe down there. If they're protected by from the fire from their burrows, then they're probably also protected from the rain, right? The water. Although if it floods, I don't know. Maybe they just climb out and wait for it to dry. Isn't it incredible? An animal, all the animals that live in the wild, they find food, they find friends, they find mates, they survive. Isn't it incredible, really? If they live a long time, I wonder if they have long memories. Alright, let me use a smaller brush now. Let me get some of these darker areas here. I'm going to continue using that brown. I think that brown is working nicely on his face. Let's get some darker areas here. Looks like he's got some shadow right there on his nose. And it comes around there. And it looks like a lot of darkness around his eyes. A little bit up here. It's interesting because the watercolor almost looks like his texture of his actual body. They almost have the same eye that an eagle has. The eagle has that powerful looking eye. Sometimes I don't like using the pen. Like right now I'm wondering if I made a mistake or not with the pen. The pen looks good on the eye, but I'm not so sure about those scales. I probably didn't need to do that. So I'll try to paint. I'll probably paint it in such a way that it'll be hard to see them, I hope. Hope I can cover it up a little bit. Alright, some brown up here. I still want it to be mostly light. He's almost like he's got a smile, huh? He's got a little smile. Alright, let's get some of that dark now that I borrowed from the other set. Get a little darker in there. Make it very dark inside of his shell. Have to use several layers of the dark paint. Just keep working it. Looks like a little bit of dark would work here. Let me spread it around with the water. I'll blend it with the brown. Put that over here too. very much dinosaur-ish, right? I don't really have to work too much on this painting except for the face and the foot. The rest of it is such a large, broad area. Alright, now that's too wet. I gotta let that dry. Alright, keep darkening this area here. He looks like he's smiling. All right, let's keep getting this dark area in here. There's some dark areas that really help this come together. A bit of grass here. That's what his favorite food is the grass. Now I am right now regretting putting the pen marks on the feet. So to try to counter that, I'm going to try to make it darker in some of them, because otherwise it kind of has that cartoon effect, which I don't really want. I don't really want that cartoon effect, but I do kind of want the defined. I do kind of like what the pen did to define it. So maybe this is a happy way to make this come around. It's it gradually goes from dark to light. So I think I could do that. Just keep putting some little bit of darkness in these scales. We just keep getting these dark ones down here to be darker. I kind of like the idea of painting wildlife, by the way. And again, this is one of those animals that nobody ever talks about when they talk about Florida. They always talk about the dolphins and the alligators and the iguanas and the flamingos. They don't talk about the gopher tortoise. I wonder why. They seem like such a gentle creature. They don't hurt anybody. They just eat grass. Let's go ahead and get some light brown up here. Keep working some of these scales. They have little claws too, and if you pick them up, they will try to like run away from you when you're holding them. Like they'll move their feet as if they're, just trying to get some traction. And I don't know if it's against the law to pick them up, so if I broke the law, I'm so sorry. But I don't see why it would be a problem if you're saving them from getting squished in the road, I really think, I don't know what the rules are. I should look it up before I tell you anything about it. Alright, now let's get some of these shadows on the shell a little bit more defined. The watercolor really does a good job with the shell. And I think this brown color is really working nicely too. I think I'm almost done. Get some more darkness under here. Look at this part of the shell. Yeah, I think we have to be better stewards of the environment. I think we as a group of people, as humanity, I think we have done a disservice to the rest of God's creation. I think we got to make amends for that and fix everything that we can. I really do. I know there are people who are going to disagree with me because of whatever reason, but I really think we have to consider. I'm guessing most artists I know probably agree with me. Most artists are very sensitive to the world around them and the natural world and the environment. Not that I go overboard. I think there is some overboard people, but I don't know. Alright, this is coming out alright. It's kind of like it. Those little lines I put with the ink, I probably didn't need to do. The only thing I think worked with the ink was the eye and the mouth, and maybe those nostrils. I think those are the areas that really look a little better with the ink. And I'm trying to fix these ones over here because I kind of overdid it, I think. Made it look very cartoony, but it's starting to be better. I think I'm enjoying the way it looks now. You can still see them. Well, it kind of looks like a mess up on the shell, but that's how it looks in the reference photo. It's just dappled light, Alright, I'm going to let it dry and I'll be right back to fold it. Okay. So let's see. It almost looks like a black and white picture. It kind of is. And now that I fold it, now we have our tortoise. Our gopher tortoise. Alright, well guess what? Not only did I learn how to paint the tortoise today, but I learned a little bit about them. And they're right here, in my own area. Alright, I'll talk to you later. Hey, by the way, thank you for all of the nice things you all said when we were going through the storm. It was so sweet to ask Robert and I to be safe. It was very nice. Alright, I'll talk to you later. Bye.